What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916, getting down with Fresh Out. You know how we do it over here. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, represent. I'm back in the house with my man, Owen Hanson, and you guys have been asking, so we're gonna get some more backstory. So, Owen, man, where did the hustle begin? You know, what was it that instilled the whole hustle mentality in you?
You know, Big Herc, I would say the hustle probably started right here in this city of the round town, Redondo Beach. You know, I remember it started off right around the junior high era. I was going to Paris Middle School down the street, and my dad would only give me $2 in quarters every day for lunch. But when you go to lunch, it's like $3.25, or if you want an extra burrito, it's another $4, you know. So I was like, man, how am I going to survive off of $2 in quarters, Pops, you know? But that's all he'd give me, you know. He was a construction worker, like you know. And I said to myself, well, I'm going to have to start hustling. And there was this game called quarters where you take your 25-cent quarter and you throw it against the handball court. I don't know if you remember playing that game, you know. So I said to myself, I need to practice before I start hustling my friends, right? So I remember I'd go to my grandmother's house every day after school, and I'd save a couple quarters every time my dad would give me lunch money. And I'd eat like an apple, bag of chips, you know. I would just keep those quarters and I would use them to practice. So I'd go over at my grandmother's garage and I'd just practice throwing these quarters against the garage, right? Like, should I drop it high? Should I toss it low? Like, try to figure out this technique, right? I'm like, man, I think I got it down. So a couple weeks come down and I'm landing these quarters perfectly on right against the garage, you know. It's like almost like tilting. And I said, okay, now I can introduce the game to my friends, right? All the Groms that I grew up with. And I remember my friend Joey, John, and Sean, and I said, hey guys, I got a great game. I said, start bringing your quarters. Tell your parents you don't want dollars for lunch, bring quarters. They're like, why? I said, I got a new game. It's a little gambling involved, but it's fun. So I got them hooked, man. I said, here, this is what we do. We throw one quarter, you throw a quarter. Whoever's closer gets to keep the quarter. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, you know, this is great. So, you know, first one goes Joey, and I throw my quarter, land it like boom, right on the handball court, and Joey hits his, it bounces off, rolls back, so I pick up the quarters. Then my buddy John comes, and he goes, oh, I got you, I can beat you. Same thing, boom, grab his quarter. Then Sean comes, boom, grab him. I made 75 cents just like that, and then next thing you know, I'm playing this quarter game every day. I'm making like $2 to $3, so now I'm finally eating. I'm like, man, I can eat now, you know? Like, I got a burrito, a bag of chips, a juice, some dessert, you know. It was fun, right? All my buddies are like, man, how are we gonna beat them? And I'm hustling them. I beat them every day, man. I'm finally eating. And that feeling, that hustle, that mentality that I had felt so good, man.
You know, it's funny you say that because we used to do the same thing in high school, and we'd go in the bathroom. You know, the bathroom had the tile, so it would slide up. So, like, literally, you know, we had guys that would master, and you'd get the quarter to slide right up, face up. And you're like, damn, so you had to, in order to break even, you had to face up too. And so we'd be in there in between classes when the bell would ring, and we'd be pitching quarters and side betting. And if I knew you were really good, I'd say, okay, I got 5 on Owen.
Yeah.
I got 5 on Owen. And literally, I mean, you can make, you know, $100, $200 in a day, and that's, and as a freshman, that's good money, man. You know, and we would also play basketball for money. You know, 2-on-2s.
Yeah.
You know, 2-on-2. Let's meet up over at the park, and we basically played a 20 by ones. And I mean, it was serious, man. So that was like my first introduction to the hustle game, similar to you with the quarters, you know, before we got into like the dice and everything else. But basketball was another one, and, you know, little things like that, we would be, you know, trying to figure out ways how to make money.
It's funny you say that about basketball. So my pops, he played basketball Division I at Pepperdine, right? So my dad was good, 6'4", 240. He was a guard, right?
Shit.
Okay. It's funny you say that because my next hustle became like, once the principal understood that we were gambling, he shut it down.
Yeah.
You know, one month he said, no, you guys are gambling. I said, no problem. We'll put our quarters away, right? We'll put them in our pocket. I said, I got a new game for you guys. So I told my dad, Dad, every time you get home from work, I'll be at Grandma's. I said, let's just play a little one-on-one, you and me. My dad would beat me every time. You know, 6'4", I was just a kid. I was 13 years old. He's beating me one-on-one every day, but I'm playing him as hard as I can. You know, I'm going against a college athlete, right? You know, my dad's only like 40 years old at the time, but he still can hoop. So I'm losing him, but I'm like, okay, this is going to pay off. So I go back to junior high, and I'm telling my friends, I got a new game. Let's play one-on-one for our burrito. So now we don't even need to bring the quarters out. So now I'm saying, I got a better deal for you. I said, I'll give you my whole tray, chips, burrito, and the drink, but you guys only have to play for your burrito. And like, who's not going to take that bet, right? So they're like, yeah, bet. So here I am, boom, swish, swish. And they're like, man, what the fuck, man? You keep hustling us. I said, what, man? I'll play any one of you. And I just started hustling on the basketball court. But it all happened because my pops, you know, helped me get better, and I left the quarters behind. It's just now we're just exchanging food. You know, later on in life, I did the same thing with the money laundering game. You know, you're laundering money, but you don't even realize you're laundering money. For example, instead of doing a bank wire, why don't I just do a deposit where you bring me gold, or you bring me, you know, silver, whatever it may be. Now there's no paper trail. And there's no paper trail when you're playing one-on-one and you're just eating the burrito, right? So my mentality kept going in life. And any way I could avoid a paper trail in life, I would. You know, I remember a time I worked for El Jefe, and he says, hey, you owe us a lot of money. In order for you to pay us back, we're willing to take anything. We don't need wires, we don't need cash, we don't need gold. So start being creative. And I knew El Jefe, he had this fetish, man. He loved buying women purses. You know, he would buy these Hermes bags, right? And he would always say, hey, these Hermes bags are hard to get. He goes, I know you got those VIP customers in Beverly Hills that gamble with you. If you can ever get those, I'll give you a premium on them. So I said, no worries, you know, and I'm still running the gambling business. So I remember one day one of my VIP customers, A-list celebrity, was put on this list for Hermes Birkin bags. They're like $150,000 bags. And I told my customer, I said, listen, if you can ever get me a Birkin bag, I said, I'll give you a $10,000 credit, free play. You just use it. If you win, I pay you. If you lose, you don't owe me anything. So it was like giving someone that smokes crack just a little rock, right? And what are they going to do? They're going to smoke it, and then what are they going to do? They're going to want to buy more, right? So I'm giving them $10,000, knowing they're not going to ever cash it out. But in order to get that $10,000, they had to give me the Birkin bag, just the list. To be on the list is impossible. There's only 20 made in the world. So if you're on the list, you get the retail price, which is like $150, right? $150K. But only 20 people in the world can get that bag. So they just got a $10,000 free play. I go to Hermes with them. I take my cash. I pay $150. I message El Jefe on the encrypted phone and says, hey, guess what? I said, I got a Birkin bag for you, $250,000. You want it? He goes, oh yeah, which one is it? You know, I said, it's the green one, the crocodile one. Oh yeah, I want that. I said, you're willing to pay $250? He said, absolutely. So boom, just like that, I laundered money with no paper trail going to El Jefe. You know, I just spent $150, so I profited $100,000. Yeah, I owed him money, so it's just coming off our figure, but I just saved myself $100,000. So it just goes back to my junior high days, you know. I just saved myself from buying a burrito at lunch. So that's where this hustle mentality started.
So going into high school, who was like a hustler in high school that had an influence on you? I mean, was there somebody in high school that maybe didn't come from money that you seen was dressed really fly, or seemed like they always had a nice car, or they always had money in their pocket? I know for me, I looked up to like the D-boys who would come up there in the mini trucks and the 5.0s, and they had the Jerry curls or the perms, and they had the troop jackets on or the Filas. I'm like, damn, you know, that stuff was like, these guys look like celebrities walking through, you know, the campus with these nice clothes on. And all the girls were looking at them like, oh my God, that's so-and-so from Whoop-de-Wop. And you're like, this dude was like a legend because, you know, he had a cool swag. And then you come to find out, like, dude, he's a drug dealer. What is he selling?
For sure. You know, that's a funny question you may ask, because people see me as this white surfer kid from Redondo Beach with this comb over, you know, blonde hair, green eyes, and they think, oh, you know, he's just a surfer kid. But you know who I looked up to? I looked up to the Serranios, the gangsters in school. You know, the guys that were wearing Ben Davis and Dickies and white shirts, you know, and these flat brim LA hats, and you know, Chuck Taylors. I'm like, people would be like, why would you look up to them? Because they were gangsters. They were making moves at such a young age, and I respected that coming from nothing just like them. So I would watch them, and I would watch their pockets fill up. And I said, man, one day I want to be like them, you know. And later on in life, obviously, that occurred once I went to college. So, you know, I didn't care about the guys with the chains. I wanted to be a gangster. And, you know, coming from a white background, people were like, man, why would you want to be a Mexican gangster? But those were the people I was around that I felt comfortable with, because they came from the same, you know, walk of life I came from nothing.
So having that element at the school kind of exposed you to something different besides just the skateboarding, the surfing, and, you know, just your typical beach life. Because when people think Redondo, they're like, you know, I didn't know there had, you know, gangsters out in Redondo. You know, I didn't know there had gang members out there. So there was a little bit of mixture of both out here.
Yeah, there was, for sure. You know, there was on the north side, the gangsters, the Mexican Redondo 13 gang, and then on the south side, like Burl Street gang, which was like a white skater surfer gang.
So going from high school into college, I mean, did you ever think about, like, okay, how would I pay for college, or did you think you were going to get a scholarship? And, you know, was money, you know, ever an issue or something you thought about? I mean, or did you think, like, you know, I'll figure it out once I get there?
You know, to be honest, Herc, I thought when I got there, things would be like more given to me, right? I thought it was like all inclusive. You know, you're going to college, you think you're going to get the meals paid for, the room and board, obviously, and you don't ever think like, oh, you got to go out and have fun with, you know, your volleyball teammates, your fraternity brothers, the sorority girls. So you don't think of those things when you're going to college. You know, your parents are giving you, for my circumstances, you know, maybe $100 a month, like for just to use for whatever, maybe my hygiene, maybe a couple snacks here and there, but that's it. $100, like what am I going to do with $100? But everyone around me had the Mercedes-Benz, the BMWs, the Escalades, the black cards, right? So I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do in order to fit in? Like, I have to find something that no one is willing to do, that has some balls, in order to get into these people's pockets. And what do they like that they're spending some money on, whether it be, you know, cocaine, Adderall, Xanax, ecstasies, whatever it may be. I had to figure it out. And I figured it out real fast, and it was that white girl. It was that powder.
So when you notice, like, these rich kids, I mean, you know, I didn't grow up around super rich kids, but, like, I know that, like, the first time I really realized it was different was I remember going to meet this girl. She's like, oh, I want to go out with her. So she's like, hey, come over and meet my parents. And when I went over there, you know, she was in the kitchen with her mom or dad, pulled me to the side. He's like, hey, man, what do your parents do? And then he said, like, you know, are you going to college? He said, where do you see yourself out in 5 years? And I'm like, damn, man, he's asking me a bunch of questions. I'm just trying to bust his daughter's cheeks. You know what I mean? I wasn't trying, you know, I didn't know I was going to get the third degree, because in the hood, you just bust cheeks. You
That's
know?
right.
But I'm realizing, like, damn, it's a different game. And it's like they're trying to figure out what stock you come from. You know what I mean? Like, if my daughter is hooking up, what does the future look like with my daughter? So did you experience that? Like, once you know, like you said, going and you're around, like, you know, USC is one of the top schools in the country. People in Japan and China, everybody knows about USC. So, you know, going there is a big thing. And then a lot of the people going there come from a particular stock. Did you feel like it awkward trying to fit in with that stock, or did you figure out a way how to, you know, position yourself? Because of, like, did you ever meet, you know, girls or guys like, oh, man, what do your parents do? And you're like sitting there like, damn, this is like kind of a, you know, this is the next level or above my pay grade, or, you know.
You know, I did. And the first, like, 3 months, just like in prison, you know, you sit back and you watch, right? It's a dance, right? You try to figure out what's going on. And I sat back and I just observed. And I noticed that these kids all were going to this Arco off of Hoover, by, you know, right by the 10 freeway, ghetto, right there in South Central. And they're all going down there. And I noticed that my fraternity brothers are going down there and they're coming back with this stepped-on cocaine. I'm like, oh, man, what are you guys paying for that? You know, they're like, we're paying $100 a bag. I'm like, fuck, $100 a bag, well. stepped on, I'm like, okay, this is where my mentality kicks in. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I go back to Northside Redondo, where the people I grew up with, those guys in high school that I looked up to, that had those Ben Davis pants and those Chuck Taylors, but their Ben Davis was full of cash, why don't I just go approach them and see if they would be willing to go into business with me? You know, obviously I have no money to pay for it out of pocket, so I'm going to have to ask for it on the front. And obviously I'll pay a little more, right? Because they're the ones taking the risk. And that's what I did. I called the homeboys from Redondo 13 and I asked them, I said, hey man, just front me. And that's where it started. So I started getting fronted, you know, styrofoams, 8 ounces, scales, gram bags. They taught me everything. And I remember seeing it one day in Northside. I saw that drug transaction go down and it was so smooth. It was just like a handshake, money in the pocket. And I was like, man, it's that easy, right? I was like, I can do that. And if I could do it in a fraternity house where no one's going to see anything, I said, that's even more safe, because safety's first. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we're going to USC. I shouldn't even be doing this. But like I said, I'm trying to survive. I'm just trying to fit in. This is my calling. I got the balls, and I'm willing to sell something that these kids are not willing to sell or buy. If they're going to buy it, they're going to buy it at an Arco from some guy that's stepping on it with baby powder or lactose. So for me, I'm like, okay, this is going to be my hustle. This is going to be my survival.
Now, did it seem like it was even a big deal there? Because it wasn't like you were selling to, like, you know, I was selling in the park to crackheads. You were selling to kids looked like they came from everything. So it probably seemed pretty normal. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like, you know, somebody was, oh man, come on, hook me up a dub, man. I mean, these guys, you know, they were in school. They wasn't like they didn't seem like they were addicts. I mean, how was that flow, man? I mean, it's like, were you just like, damn, this is just a part of life or this culture?
You know, it was the easiest money I've ever made. I would go to football practice. I'd have my bunkie or my fraternity brother. You know, my prison mentality is saying bunkie. It's not my bunkie. It's my fraternity brother that lives in the room with me. And I'd just be like, hey, the gram bags are there. Give them 2 for $100. You know, make your money every time you sell 20. Take one for yourself. I said, it's easy, and I wanted to be as far away from it as I could be, because I knew I had to go to school. I knew I had to play sports. So if I could make money while I'm at practice, I knew I was winning. And that's what I started to do. I just started giving everybody this
stuff. Back and collect.
Yeah, come back. I just count that cash, and that cash is what got me through college.
Yeah,
that cash is what allowed me to go take a nice sorority girl out to lunch or dinner, go to the 901 club.
So what was it like dating one of these chicks that came from that rich background? I mean, you know, you always see it in the movies. I mean, I've never really dated no super bougie ass girl, but what was that like? I mean, when you went, like, did you ever go to some, you know, now you had a little money in your pocket, you said you had the Benz, did you ever go to somebody's, you know, house, meet her parents or to a party and be like, God, this is some other shit?
Dude, I'll never forget this. I went down to Laguna Beach and I was dating this girl, and her father was filthy rich. You know, big company. I'm not going to say who it is or the company, but it was so big. We went in this community called Emerald Bay, which is all waterfront properties, gated community in Laguna Beach. It's like 25 million and up. And I went in there and I was like, holy shit. And I remember the dad, he says, hey, you want to take a ride? I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to go in a Mercedes. And he had like this $400,000 Aston Martin. And I sat in that thing, and that was the first time I've ever sat in Aston Martin. I sat back, and he just took off, and I was like, "Whoa, baby!" And I was like, "Man, this is the life. I see this money now," and I'm like, "Okay, I want that house. I want the Aston Martin." And this light bulb went off in my head, and that's when I knew that I smelt the money, I tasted the money, I seen the money. Now it's like, okay, now we got to move up the food chain. I got to get to this level one day.
The reason I ask is because I always listen to people when they talk about influences. And they always said your circle of friends is going to tell you a lot about who you are. And when you've experienced certain things, I remember the first time I experienced riding in a private jet with this guy. And he's like, hey, man, you know, you want to go for a ride? I'm like, oh, I mean, he's bullshitting. We're in Santa Monica Airport. And he's like, come on. And I'm like, damn, I didn't, you know, I checked no planes. Like, we're just going to go. We flew from Santa Monica to I want to say Ontario, to another private airport to talk to his buddy for a minute, and then flew back. And like it wasn't shit, I'm like, this is some next level shit. Like these dudes do this, and like he spent, $5,000-$10,000 worth of gas just to go over here and clown and come back. And I'm like, wow, and it just it made me think like how far this is from people in the hood, over here in a, in box Chevys and shit, to like these guys over here at a private airport, and there was no checking anything. They just got in the plane and took off. And so it opened my eyes to a whole nother world. And a lot of times people, unless you've experienced that, it's a different reality. And I know like you, by having gone to USC and then being exposed to that other side, it had an impact on your whole hustle game and everything else you got into after that point.
Yeah, it just opened up my eyes, right? You see this fuck you money, right? That's what we call it, because they have so much of it and they don't ever have to worry in life, right? They're set forever. And, I think at the time my dad was making maybe $40,000 a year, so you got to think you're comparing someone that's making $40,000 a year, and probably these dads are like making minimum like $4 million a year, right? Minimum, right? And their mom's probably a stay-at-home soccer mom that's just collecting money from her dad, right? So it was just a different mindset in it. And once I saw it, it's like I'm trying to fit in. I'm doing the best I can, and I'm being resilient. And that's how I can. That's the only way I can explain it.
So when you graduated, did you kind of graduate also from the coca game, and got into some other stuff? I mean, so
yeah, I stopped.
Okay,
I was done. I people don't realize that was just to get by, right? That was just to get by college and keep up with the Joneses, I say. But once it was done, I got that job working for alumni. And once I got that job working for alumni, I was set, I'm making close to six figures like my first year out. I'm selling real estate. I'm working as like a project engineer, making $55,000 a year plus.
And that's based on having gone to you and the connections.
Just the connections.
See what I'm saying? The connections.
I'm making more money than my dad my first year out of college, and he made his whole life. So it just shows it's all about that USC connections, and that's what you go to the school for, right?
Yeah,
you go to network. And that's what I did the whole time I networked. I saved everybody's number. So I had this special, Rolodex. So I utilized it.
Yeah.
And then the recession hit. And what did I do? I reached out to my father's friend, who was a bookie, an Italian bookie. And then that's the next chapter in my life. It's like, okay, now here's my next hustle. I'm going to be a bookie. I'm going to be the best in the business.